I'm Billy S, welcome to the channel. Today, I'm here to count down 7 indie games that need to be played. Some of these are recent, some not so much, and some are more well known than others, but I have either played or seen people play all of the games on this list, and I can attest to their quality. Now, this video is my attempt at getting some content out before my next big review, as I was basically unavailable for all of April, and I originally planned on making this video like a week ago, but then I got Elden Ring. It's okay though, I platinumed Elden Ring the other day, I'm officially free to exist and be productive again. But before we get started, I really want to say thank you to everyone who tuned into my last video, the 2-hour Metroid Dread review, or as some of you like to say in the comments, the Metroid Dread documentary. It's done beyond what I expected, and I don't know what happened, but the algorithm picked it up, and now we're at over 5,000 views, and it's kinda crazy. I was watching the views go up while I was away, and it meant the world to me. Thank you so much. If you want to help drum up support for the channel and my longer form videos though, you can always click subscribe. It's free and simple, or you can check out my Patreon page. More of that at the end of the video. So, without further ado, let us begin with Fight Night, a first-person dungeon brawler by Team Sorcerobe. This game was released on December of 2021, but was conceived through a June 2017 Kickstarter, and people have been waiting for years to play this game. I was introduced to the title through my partner Ion, as he played the demo that was available on the Kickstarter page like a year ago for me, and I thought, this looks pretty unique and interesting. Cut to release, and yeah, the game is pretty cool. It's got a retro-inspired presentation combined with a series of hand-drawn models and aesthetics that is somehow both familiar and different at the same time. Your aim is to climb the mysterious tower, with each floor being its own unique dungeon to traverse. It starts off with simple aqueducts and deserts, but you'll also encounter a hot and cold coliseum, a scrap heap swamp, and more. These locations are lovingly crafted and take familiar tropes and twist them to fit Fight Night's gameplay. The soundtrack is also stellar, with a variety of action-packed themes to pump you up during battle, while there are a couple of welcoming songs that play during your downtime, serving to lower the atmosphere from its perpetual high. But where the game truly shines is its robust and compelling real-time positional combat system. When battles are triggered, you're thrust into a combat situation where you have to move around in real time, punching, dodging, pushing, countering, and blocking your way to victory. You have access to super specialty moves, including a literal JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Aura Aura Aura, and throughout the game, you can upgrade Fight Night with new gauntlets, new moves, and consumable potions. This is further enhanced in New Game Plus with an entirely new system of unlockables to collect. No spoilers here though. The battle system is very difficult to get to grips with initially, and there is a learning curve that has to be overcome, and I can safely say that the gameplay won't be for everybody. But you can make things easier on yourself with a variety of different accessibility options in the menu, including toggles to make the camera shake less severe to combat motion sickness, or a colorblind mode, which should at this point just be a feature in most games. It's a title that isn't getting talked about all that much despite only getting positive reviews on Steam. It's such a unique game that really doesn't have anything to compare it with on the market, and it's only €17. It's a steal for that price. So go, grab it, or should I say, punch it. So sticking with games my partner introduced me to, let's talk about Rain World, a 2D survival platform game by Video Cult. With a 6-year development cycle, this title came out in 2017 to mixed reviews from critics due to its obtuse progression and difficult survival gameplay, but has since gained a major cult following for its world design, lore, art style, and ironically the thing it was criticized for, the gameplay. You play as a slug cat, a mix between a slug, ferret, and a cat, who must explore various zones, collecting enough food so you can hibernate while avoiding enemies and hazards. The goal is to survive each day by making it to a safe hibernation room, otherwise you'll find yourself crushed under the weight of a deadly rainstorm that hits every night, giving the game its name. This is one of those indie games that doesn't hold your hand, giving you barely any guidance to survive, save for a small guiding creature that you can follow through the environment. But it's up to you to search the zones for hidden paths, new locations, and precious resources. The length of each day is randomized, so some days may be longer while others may be shorter, forcing you to plan whether you want to make headway into exploring vast stretches of the environment, or whether you want to stay near your save point and wait for a longer day. Surviving each day awards the player with a karma point, while dying takes away a karma point. This mechanic is important, as you need specific levels of karma to enter different areas of the overworld, meaning you need to play smart and you need to play strategically to progress. But Rainworld isn't always a fair game. You'll have to handle a variety of enemies, including lizards, giant vultures, and deadly plants, and due to their dynamic AI, they all exist in the world regardless of whether the player can see them or not. So sometimes you can just get unlucky and run into an enemy while unprepared, and that's just part of the experience. Rainworld can be frustrating at times, but with so many hidden mechanics and vistas to explore, 3 base game slugcat modes with their own unique challenges, and a new recently announced DLC expansion bringing 5 new slugcats and a variety of new modes to the game, there's going to be more than enough content to sink your teeth into. Rainworld can be purchased on PS4, Switch, and Steam, so jump in and give this game a whirl. So I've talked about this game before in my first video on this channel, go watch it by the way, and I'm doing it again. Everhood, an ineffable tale of the inexpressible divine moments of truth, is an indie game released last year by developers Chris Nordgren and Geordie Rocker, who wanted to create an adventure RPG with a rhythm game battle system, reminiscent of Guitar Hero, where you'll be dodging across different lanes to avoid attacks. The gameplay is so unique and fresh as you explore the world of Everhood, attempting to find your stolen arm taken by the malicious Gold Pig. You might find yourself at a local racetrack where you may or may not be forced into a cool racing minigame, or you might battle a deadly ATM that doesn't want to give you cash, or you might even take part in some good old-fashioned roleplay. Along the way, you'll encounter a variety of different characters, such as the enigmatic fan-favorite Green Mage, a vampire boy whose name changes every time you meet him, a shopkeeper with a thing for plants, and so many more. Each character comes with their own unique battle theme and patterns that you have to memorize, and trying to survive each song's onslaught by dodging and jumping can be pretty brutal at first. But as is with any rhythm game, you just have to learn and adapt to each song. Now, the game has drawn comparisons to Toby Fox's magnum opus Undertale, and there definitely are similarities within the presentations of both games. I actually remember seeing the trailer for Everhood, and I was confused because it copied a lot of aspects of Undertale's old trailer as well, so because of that, I wrote the game off. But when I got to playing Everhood, I found it stood on its own 2 feet as a very unique experience that blends together a series of genres you wouldn't think would work together. I'm really glad I ultimately played it and saw it for the original experience it really was. Explore some dungeons, battle some of the Everhood inhabitants, get attacked by tiny gnomes, and just have a good time. Fair warning though, this game isn't for everyone, and while it has difficulty options for players who want an easier experience, it's still a tough title and contains a lot of psychedelic imagery that may make some people motion sick. If what you're seeing on screen looks enticing though, you can check Everhood out on both Steam and Nintendo Switch. Perfect game for an on-the-go kind of player. A genre of games that really needs more attention are FMV games, and I think the infectious madness of Dr. Dekker is perhaps one of the best on the market. Released by Dekker Studios back in 2017 for Windows and 2018 for consoles, you play as a new psychiatrist trying to solve a murder whilst treating the patients of the recently deceased Dr. Dekker, who you've replaced. You have to probe each of your patients with questions about their personal lives, their relationship with their former psychiatrist, and more in order to figure out who did it. Now, this game is built around the mechanic of discovering the secrets of each of the patients, so I'm not going to spoil any plot lines here. You can switch between patients at a whim if you feel one character is giving you nothing to discuss, and you'll have a log that keeps track of the topics you may want to ask about to a given character. There's also a hint system with a cooldown in case you get completely stuck, which is very helpful. What I really love, though, about Dr. Dekker is the influence of Lovecraft on this title. From the logo, to the gameplay, to the story, you can feel the inspiration all around you. It's never truly a simple murder mystery, is it? There's even a sanity system that can rack up points if you probe too deeply and gain too much insight into the investigation. There are definitely supernatural elements at play with each character, but you're a psychiatrist, a person of science and psychology, so whether you believe them or just assume that they're mad is completely up to you. Most importantly, the killer is randomized at the start of each new game, so any of the patients could have feasibly killed Dr. Dekker. Some scenes change depending on who the killer is in a given playthrough, but you won't know that your first time playing. Props need to also go to the actors for this title. Everyone gives it their all to bring their characters to life, something absolutely vital to the FMV game experience, and there are multiple moments where I found myself unnerved or spooked out by the game's presentation and acting. It's not a horror game, but it has its moments. If you have a chance, grab a friend, get to solving Dr. Dekker's murder, and if you enjoy this game, consider checking out The Shapeshifting Detective, another game by the same developers that has a similar premise, but with a more down-to-earth detective story. In 2016, Alaskan developer Doptera released the side-scrolling RPG Creepy Castle on Steam, where you take control of a variety of different characters across a small host of different campaigns, each with their own gameplay twists and turns, a formula reminiscent of Kirby Superstar's different gameplay modes. Funded through Kickstarter back in 2014, it raised $8,485 and became a reality. And I was introduced to this game, once again, through my partner Ion when he played it on Steam with me. Creepy Castle has a minimalist retro NES Atari aesthetic, but the game contains various unique filters, including a Game Boy filter, a CRT filter, and more. The world design is simple yet effective, and really harkens back to old school gaming, but with a modern twist. Just look at some of these screenshots and tell me they don't look charming to you. Initially playing as the hero Moth, you must venture into the titular Creepy Castle and explore the various floors, collecting items, reading lore, and meeting quirky characters, all the while battling against enemies in various duels that require different minigame inputs to complete. You'll tackle bosses, explore new areas, and ultimately, maybe save the world. The first campaign could be a simple dungeon crawler, while the third campaign is a journey to the depths of a giant cavern with different gameplay mechanics to focus on. I haven't played the full game, but I'm pretty sure there's a space campaign in there somewhere as well. There's a lot of charm and a lot of meat to this title if you give it your time, and it just hasn't had the exposure it deserves. It's less than $10 on Steam, so please don't let this game pass you by. Let's try and give this game a resurgence and show people how good it really is. Now for a game that I've both beaten and streamed before, let's talk about Darkwood. This title is a top-down survival horror game where you're trapped in the titular Darkwood with no way out. Your goal is to explore the fetid forests, collecting resources to barricade your shelters, all the while meeting up with the warped inhabitants that call this place home. Some are friendly, some are foe, but you'll need to work with some to find your way home. Initially released all the way back in 2014, it was covered back then by big horror YouTubers like Markiplier, but didn't get its full release until 2017. So this may be the most high-profile game on the list under that metric, but even then, it's a game I wish more people would talk about. The atmosphere is oppressive, and the dark color palettes and disturbing imagery add a real layer of fear to everything you see. Its randomized world design means no two playthroughs are exactly the same, and the various biomes you can explore get tougher and tougher to navigate and traverse. You'll have to scavenge for oil, weapons, wood, nails, food, and more, while trying to avoid a whole host of monstrous enemies. You can only ever see what's in front of you in a fairly narrow cone of vision, so you have to remain alert lest an enemy sneak up behind you. all the while keeping an eye on the time of day, as once evening hits, you need to book it back to the nearest shelter and barricade yourself inside. My advice? Get a watch as soon as you can. It's the only way to get an exact in-game time, otherwise you'll be relying on visual cues alone to get back home. Being able to conquer the Darkwood and survive each night, though, does make you feel like an absolute beast. It's a shame then that you have to go through those horrific nighttime sequences to get that serotonin boost. Depending on your shelter, a whole host of randomized events can happen. Doors opening on their own, enemy attacks, spooky lights, and thanks to the game's stellar sound design, well, let's just say you'll be hearing things before you see them, and that is terrifying. Anything could be out there, waiting to break through your barricades while you're huddled in a corner praying for morning light. And God forbid you run out of oil and are left in the dark. That's terrifying. Acid Wizard Studio knew what they were doing with this game, and it shows. It's one of my favorite survival horror titles, as the first playthrough is always gonna be a doozy, and there's enough unique events and questlines that replayability is pretty high. If horror is your thing, then head on down to Darkwood, only €14 on Steam. For this last game, I'm going to be talking about Minit, but the game's gimmick is that you only have 60 seconds per life, so I'm going to do this section in under a minute, starting now. Released in 2018, Minit starts when your character picks up a cursed sword, causing them to die and wake up back in bed after a minute. You have to venture through the world, reaching new safe houses, and solving the mystery of the sword by getting to the sword factory. You'll be able to keep any items you collect upon death, and combat involves a simple sword swipe. Learning how to best spend and manage your time makes for a fantastic gameplay loop, and while the endgame can be a little confusing to figure out, the overall gameplay experience was a lot of fun, and I 100% completed the game on Steam, even the New Game Plus mode that lowers your timer to 40 seconds. The art style is minimalist, but it works. The characters are quirky and fun, and you'll have a blast exploring Minit's small but compact world. It's basically a baby Metroidvania / 2D Zelda game. Great game, very cheap, on all major platforms. Go play it. Stop the clock. And there you have it, guys. 7 indie games that you need to check out. I'll leave links to their Steam pages down below, and if you've played any of these games, leave a like. And if you haven't played any of these games, subscribe. Before I go, I'd like to quickly shout out my Patreon account. We have 3 patron tiers available, and if you want to support the channel, you would be iconic like these fine folks who are currently doing just that. Thank you, guys. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.